All right, let's move on. Now, originally when we scheduled this interview for yesterday, I wanted to talk, and I still do want to talk about roadside drug testing because we had a really interesting conversation about what's it for, how will it work, and what is its imposition on you, what good will it do. But also the Herald, and as Chris Collins pointed out, a photograph that tried to associate the Prime Minister with Jevon McSkimming when, of course, it was Chris Hipkins who appointed him, but now calls for a wider inquiry by the police or into the police from the woman who had the relationship with Jevon McSkimming, an affair with Jevon McSkimming, said she was misused and abused and was treated terribly by police. We'll come to that a little later in the interview, but we're joined now by the Minister of Police, Mark Mitchell. Minister, Mark, good morning to you. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, Sean. Sorry I couldn't make it yesterday morning, mate. There's a few logistical issues going on there. But,
that's all right. No problems. You're here now. Thank you for joining us. And look, we had a really, in your absence, we had a really interesting discussion about roadside drug testing. And because I'm not a great user of drugs, it's not like I sit there and go, oh, God, that'll stop me getting stoned and driving or doing a whole lot of cocaine and driving the car home. But then I sat there and thought about it, as a lot of us did in the discussion we had yesterday. And the question is, what is the point of the testing? Is it to stop people taking drugs or stop people driving in dangerous states, impaired?
Well, I think it's both. I think, number one, I hope that it'll be a deterrent because 30% of road deaths are attributable or there's drugs found in the person. So, that's way too high.
Does that include alcohol or is that just drugs?
That's drugs, yeah.
Wow. So, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so obviously you want the deterrent effect. And of course the other one is what I've just alluded to, is public safety. We don't want people in control of vehicles that are deadly when they're under the influence of drugs.
All right. It's a hell of a list of drugs there. How is it going to work? So I get pulled up, I'd say, thanks to your guys, I'll be driving home on a Friday or Thursday, and I'm always okay when I drive home. I do not drink and drive anymore. I've had a conviction for it. I often get stopped on Oriental Bay, and you go through and you say, count to 10, sir, fine, on your way. What is going to happen now at one of those checkpoints if they're doing drug testing? How does it look different? How is the experience different?
They'll probably run similar drug drive testing just like they do with breath alcohol, but it will take a little bit longer. So if they take an oral test and you're clear, then you're gone. So that's literally the same as doing it'll be very, very similar to doing a alcohol breath test.
Is it a device you're talking to, or do they swab my mouth?
No, it's a swab. And then if they do detect that, they'll be testing for 4 drugs: THC, meth, MDMA, and cocaine. And if they do detect that, they'll give you a second test, and if that is a positive, then you are banned from driving for 12 hours. You cannot drive that vehicle.
At what level?
Further.
Because, Minister, the offence here is driving while impaired, right?
Yes.
What is the level at those drugs you can have to be impaired? Because we've clearly decided that you can have some alcohol and not be impaired. That's why we have a breath limit. Do we have a THC limit or a cocaine limit or an MDMA limit? And if not, why not?
Well, if you have THC, methamphetamine, MDMA, or cocaine in your system, and there's enough in there for it to be detected and show up an oral swab, then you are not fit. You're not safe to be in control.
How do we know
vehicle.
that? Is there any international study on that?
Well, the 30% of road fatalities.
No, but that's not a scientific study of what represents impairment.
Well, it is a scientific study in the sense of people. There's 30% of our road deaths are attributable to people that have one of those.
But we might have 60% of people driving with THC, cocaine, or MDMA in their system. They're not all having fatal accidents. So what I'm saying, if the crime is the impairment, why don't we just measure the impairment?
Well, I think that's far more challenging with drugs. It does go away, and those drug tests do get tested, and actually, when they're tested in the lab, there's actually 25 drugs that can show up through that testing.
Yeah, some of them are drugs that you'd legitimately take for pain relief or a whole lot of other things.
And if you are, if you show positive through that lab testing, then you'll be issued an infringement notice. Even
for things that you might be prescribed.
Well, I don't know. That's technical in terms of I don't know what the actual.
But my point is, Minister, the offence is driving while impaired, and we have not got any measure of these drugs, whether they are illegal drugs or not. At what level they impair people more than, I don't know, is it 80 milligrams of alcohol per litre of blood or whatever it is. So I'm saying it's not actually a particularly focused kind of program, is it?
No, it's very focused. If you've got THC, meth, MDMA or cocaine in your system, then you'll be considered.
Yeah, but that's not the crime. It's whether or not you're impaired, and these tests don't tell that.
Well, if you've got THC, meth, MDMA or cocaine in your system, then for the purposes of this test, you are considered impaired. You are considered it's considered that you should not be driving or in control of a vehicle with other members of the public around you. They are deadly, and 30% of our road deaths, people have got one of those drugs in their system.
Well, maybe 30% of people have those drugs in their system all the time, Minister. It's not a causative link. It's a correlation.
Well, I think it's very causative when you see that we're dealing with.
Well, do you have any science that says it's causative?
Well, I mean, just the stats themselves. And the reality is this, Sean.
No, but they're a correlation statistic, not a causation statistic.
Sean, we're going to have to agree to disagree on this. As the fact of the matter is, we have taken a position. This has been an issue that has been raised by the public.
Yeah.
It is a public safety issue. It's very clear about that. We have taken steps, and it's taken a while to get this lined up and to make sure they've got the right equipment to be able to do it. That if you're detected, if you're behind the wheel, and you have got drugs, THC, meth, MDMA, or cocaine in your system, then the general public, I think, would agree you should not be in control of a vehicle that they are also they want to be safe on the roads, not have people driving around.
I don't want people who are impaired on the roads because they represent the risk and the danger. Why don't we just test people for impairment?
Well, try doing that because everyone has got different thresholds.
Walk in a straight line, put your finger on your nose.
Well, but again, everyone has got different thresholds. Look at
no, everyone needs to have the same basic threshold for driving. Otherwise, you shouldn't drive.
But we don't have that. We've set limits for with alcohol breath testing, absolutely. But impairment, you're trying to use impairment as your measure. Just think about that.
Because that's the crime. That's the offence, Minister.
No. Talk through it. Is that but what we're saying is that everyone has got different levels of impairment, right? So you might have 4 beers, and you get tested and you obviously fail. Someone else might have 4 beers and they get out there and they're going to pass the test. They're still impaired.
Yeah.
They've still had the 4 beers. They're still a risk to other motorists. So the reality is we're saying that if you've got THC, meth, MDMA, or cocaine in your system, you are considered impaired. You should not be on the roads, sharing roads with law-abiding members of society that want to be safe on our roads. They don't want people with drugs in their systems in control of vehicles. That is the test.
All right. When does it come in? When will I first
December
bump into this in Oriental Bay?
December in Wellington, and by the middle of next year it'll be throughout the whole country.
Okay. Are you expecting a backlash as people have to deal with the time? Obviously, you're going to go through a sort of kind of settling in period, aren't you?
Yeah, it's going to take, for a full test, it is going to take 4 or 5 minutes. But I just think that especially people out on the roads over the holiday period want to feel safe. I think that it's a good time to trial it here in Wellington and then roll it out to the.
How are we going with all those coppers who did the fraudulent breath tests?
That's a employment matter now for police, and they're working through that.
Okay, interesting, isn't it? And look, finally, the Herald today running a story, an interview by Jared Savage with Ms. Z, or Z, if you're American, regarding the Givon McSkimming case, calling for a wider inquiry into police and what went on.
Yep.
Do you have some sympathy for that, or not?
Look, our approach at the moment in government has quite simply been, we've been really clear that the IPCA report is very thorough, it's very detailed, and now there is more work, ongoing work by police in relation to following up on the findings of the IPCA report. We have adopted all those recommendations, both police and government, and we're now focused on doing what we need to do, the change of legislation, putting in place an Inspector General sitting over the top of police, and coming up with, we're obviously doing some work on the best way to be able to do that, and that's where the focus lies.
Okay, I've got to be honest, as a journalist, you look at this, it's a story that keeps on giving, and it's going to take a long time, isn't it, to repair and restore, if you like, the structural reputational integrity of particular senior police.
Yes, absolutely, for senior police, and and that's what we're trying to work. Both myself and the Commissioner are working really hard to make sure that we show the public that we're making the changes that we need to make, that can't happen again. The front line have feel completely betrayed by the behaviour of those.
Yeah, but then we've got 150 or more than 100 frontline officers with the fraudulent bloody breath test thing, and
Well, like I said in opposition, Sean, standards matter. And when we came into government, we've had a big focus on making sure there is a focus on standards and integrity.
Yeah. Well, look, good luck for it, and let's hope we all don't drink and drive and drive impaired over holidays, because it can be such a bloody horrific time, particularly for the police officers who have to attend and, tell people their relatives have been injured or killed. Yeah. Yeah,
I think everyone deserves and will be looking forward to a summer break without a doubt. It's been a tough year, but look, I'm glad that you highlighted the fact that, don't drink and drive, don't use drugs and drive, because, you're putting other people at risk, and you don't want to ruin a family's holiday and tragedy with someone killed or seriously injured through the impairment of people that are taking drugs or too much alcohol.
Thank you very much for your time, Minister. Good talking to you. Mark Mitchell, the Minister of Police. Well, it is kind of. It's not really whether about your impairing. At least he was honest about it. He stuck to his guns. He said, there it is. Just don't have the stuff in your system. I think it will make the road safer on balance, but you can see my logical concerns about it.